I think you have to go see. So, there you go. Here I am. Just about. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Try that. So, sorry about that, man. It's all good. Hopefully the Super Bowl starts out a little bit better than that one. Well, yeah. Just about a week and a half removed from a literal and figurative beatdown of the San Francisco 49ers. And now just a mere few days away from Super Bowl 57. And yeah, go figure. The Eagles are going to be in that game squaring off against Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, the Kelsey brothers. We know all the storylines. But we all hope that that game could be just as easy as the championship game, a 31-7 beatdown, as I said, of the 49ers there. And a game that was kind of over the minute that Hassan Reddick hit Brock Purdy's arm. You could contend that the game was over, the minute that the Niners stepped on that field because they didn't have a chance in hell to begin with Brock Purdy going in there. But really, they didn't have a chance in hell after their third-string quarterback went down. Josh Johnson came in, a career journeyman. I think he's been on 13 teams in about 10 seasons. So Josh Johnson really didn't give him any chance. And then, of course, when he went down with a concussion, I think early on in the third quarter, they had to go to Christian McCaffrey and pretty much just, wave the white flag. So, and unfortunately, the 49ers and their fans are still whining about it to this day. You got, let me say, and I could just rattle them all off in order. I think it was Brandon Ayuk who said he would bet everything on the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was unfortunate circumstances. They were going to expose something on the Eagles defense had it not been for some unfortunate circumstances. And I kind of agree with him in that the circumstances were a bit unfortunate because his head coach is a moron and a choker and an idiot on game days and decided that he thought it was a good idea to block Hassan Reddick with a backup tight end. So, yeah, you got that. And then you got Christian McCaffrey and I think it was Deebo Samuel both bitching about, if we had a third QB that was able to dress for that game, things would have been different, which, first of all, the disrespect. And that they think not only they're on their third string quarterback to begin with. And I mean, you wonder why with how Kyle Shanahan's been protecting his quarterbacks all season long, running through Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and then again, Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson. I mean, you got to wonder, right? No, you don't. But I think he's an overrated fraud. I think what I was getting at was I don't think that it's disrespectful to me for them to say that a third-string quarterback would have mounted a 14-point comeback against the Eagles in the third quarter because that's when Josh Johnson went down. Let's not forget this wasn't something that happened in the first quarter and they were just screwed for the rest of the game. They did go on a touchdown drive with Josh Johnson. Their defense was making some stops pretty early on in the game. I actually don't think that our offense played its best game, and there's probably a few reasons for that. Obviously, you're going up against a really good defense. Who knows how Jalen Hurts was feeling with the shoulder, although I don't think you can use that as an excuse when he went out and played really well against the Giants the week before. But Kyle Shanahan blew that game for the 49ers, not some bad luck, right? You had the Devontae Smith failed challenge in the beginning of the game where he did not come down with the ball, as we all ended up seeing a few replays later, but he decided to pocket the challenge flag. And after the game, his explanation was, we didn't want to waste a timeout because we didn't have the angle. Why didn't you want to waste a timeout? It's the first quarter. You're going to get 3 timeouts again at the half, and it was a critical play in the game. It was 4th down. You could have gotten the ball back. Instead, you ended up letting Miles Sanders walk in untouched for a touchdown, and it's up 7-0. I mean, it's a 7-point swing in that game. So Shanahan blew that. He blew blocking Hassan Reddick with a backup tight end, and he blew. Obviously, not dressing a third quarterback, and I mean, not that would have mattered, but yeah, I mean, once they did go down their two quarterbacks, they were left with either Christian McCaffrey or I think it was going to be Kyle Juszczyk at some point. So. But really, where it all started with the Niners was, I guess it was the curse of the Rocky statue, right? So, and that doesn't start with the Niners. That's a few years back with the Vikings, the NFC Championship game, and then the Giants just a week before the 49ers game. And then the 49ers decided that they were going to puff their chests out and their fans were going to, quote unquote, take over the link. And they're like, oh, our fans travel really well. Our fans travel really well, which is cute when you're taking over a stadium right up the road in Los Angeles where the Rams and their fans, the Rams fans in LA, at least, couldn't give a bleep about them. So that's real nice when you can take over that stadium. But it's a little bit different when you're trying to fly across the country and take over a city that cares about its football team like Philadelphia. So that was a pretty dumb assertion to begin with. But then you had the radio guys on San Francisco's end who were puffing their chest out, giving out their section number on the air on Philly radio, which was not a wise move by my estimation. In fact, an idiotic move, saying, we want the smoke, and then predictably going on Monday morning on their show and bitching about all the smoke that they got, because believe me, they did get smoke, and I had to let them into my radio station, and the first thing they did was start complaining about our fans. And I said, hold on, guys, didn't you give out your section number on the station? So anyway, that was a pretty hilarious moment with the 49ers radio guys. But and then you have Robbie Gould today, who's coming out and bitching. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks now and 49ers players are all still bitching. And first of all, this guy's a kicker. Like, you're hardly even a football player. What are you bitching about? You couldn't have affected the game in any way, shape, or form. Congrats on your one extra point on the 7 points you guys scored. Now, I know it was 31-7. But I do have to say that I know people are beating their chests about, putting up 31 points on the 49ers' great defense, which, is great and all. But any defense that's on the field for, 45 minutes of the game is going to end up getting wore down. And let's make no mistake about it. The 49ers defense just got wore down when they couldn't sustain any drives on offense. Every single time they went out on the field, it was either a turnover right away or they would go 3 and out. And give us the ball back right away. So they really didn't get a chance to get anything going on offense, which, left their defense on the field for the entire game. And if you're just running the ball down the defense's throat every single play, nonstop, and they really don't get a chance to get a breather, then you're going to put up 31 points on any defense. So don't get me wrong. I think the Eagles earned the win. I think the Eagles would have won no matter who was at quarterback because – and let's think about this. The one time that Brock Purdy dropped back, it was a sack fumble. So I don't know where the 49ers players got this notion that they were going to expose something in our defense when the one, early opportunity they had ended up being, not only not a positive play for them, but a net negative play and a positive play for us. We turned the ball over. We got the ball in their, in their territory, and we're able to just go right down and, and pretty much end their game when Brock Purdy went out 21-7 at the half, and that was pretty much it, right? Neither Josh Johnson nor whatever backup that Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel thought was going to come in with a cape and save the day. Wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, the Eagles had an easy path. That's fine to say, right? You get a little luck here and there, but every Super Bowl team needs a little bit of luck. How much luck did the Super Bowl team in 2017 get? A ton of it, to answer your question. But you also earn your luck, right? The Eagles earned this easy path when they had the best record in the NFC at 14-3. You earn the right to play all your games at home. You earn the right to have the bye week, and you earn the right to play the lowest remaining seed after each round. And that's what the Eagles got. So they played the Giants, who thought they were all tough, and then they played the Niners, who were tough, but not as tough as the Eagles. So I think it's fair to say that the Eagles had an easy path, but I also don't think it's a negative that they had an easy path, and I don't think it's indicative of how good the team is or their chances against Kansas City. And, of course, we'll get into that game in a little bit and how much you trust this defense and this offense versus what's, the other number one seed In the other conference there, 14-3, the same record as the Eagles, actually the same amount of points scored exactly on the season, which is actually pretty wild. But the Niners players weren't the only guys to be bitching about the Eagles still. In fact, you still have Julian Love of the 49ers, of the New York Giants complaining and saying that Nick Sirianni kind of has a free ride with the offense that they have, which I don't think is true. And I think you also have to give Nick Sirianni credit for the development of Jalen Hurts. And I know Jalen Hurts is, he puts the work in, but Nick Sirianni is the head coach. And I mean, he runs the entire operation. You have to give him credit for how creative this offense has been, the development of Jalen Hurts, the involvement of all the different guys in the offense. They've been spreading the ball around a ton with all the mouths that they've had to feed, and they've been real steady. I think the messages that he's been sending has been keeping a good head on the team's shoulders, and I think the guys really gravitate towards the messages that he sends, and I think it's very unfair I think it's very unfair to say any coach is getting a free ride, and even use the term it's a players' league, which is pretty funny when you consider the fact that his coach Brian Daboll is probably going to win Coach of the Year because of the job that he did with that crap roster that the Giants had, and got them to 9 wins and in the playoffs and a playoff win. So I'm not sure what he's trying to say about his own coach there, or maybe he's just speaking out of his ass. I think it's a little bit of both, actually, probably a little bit more of the latter there, which sort of leads me into a conversation that I've been hearing a lot of people having this week and the weekend past. And I know there's a lot of people with sour grapes about Andy Reid and the fact that he could never win the big one here. And I guess just real briefly on that, I grew up with Andy Reid, Eagles football being the first Eagles football that I knew. So all the sad times, the miserable times I didn't know of. And I thought that the winning thing, and not the winning Super Bowls thing, but the sustained division success and sustained playoff, at least early playoff success, I thought that was a regular thing. And, later found out that it wasn't. But I have no hard feelings towards Andy Reid because it's really difficult to win a Super Bowl in this league. I mean, you see it like if you're not Tom Brady, Peyton Manning has 1 or 2. One of them pretty much just off the back entirely of his defense. Aaron Rodgers, great of a quarterback as he's been, has 1 Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, when he was drafted and he won that Super Bowl, you probably wouldn't have met a Chiefs fan that wouldn't have said that Mahomes wouldn't have at least another one by this point. And he doesn't. He only has 1. It's difficult to win a Super Bowl in this league. So I don't really blame Andy Reid for that whatsoever. So, but it is an interesting conversation that I've heard people having this week is who do you think, and some people might scoff at it because Andy Reid's one of the greatest coaches of all time, but for this team, who do you think is a better coach, Andy or Nick right now? And I think where that debate gets interesting is obviously Andy Reid's one of the greatest play callers, schemers of all time. But where I do think Nick has the upper hand here is the game day management, the clock management, and the adjustments. Andy Reid still, it's hard for him to, it's hard for these deficiencies to show when you have Patrick Mahomes and an offense as prolific as you have, or as he's had over the past few years. But Andy Reid, those clock management issues still sort of creep up, and he still refuses to run the ball. Those are things that have not changed from his time in Philadelphia. So he's not great at closing out games, and he's not a very good just game day manager in general. I think that's sort of where I would say Nick has him beat. But obviously, the few weeks of prep leading up, or the week of prep leading up, you would take Andy Reid any day of the week. And I know there's a stat out there, Andy Reid's record after the bye week, and I think it's something like 28-4, which is a fun number when it's just Andy Reid as the guy who has the bye. Because if you actually dig into that and you look at Andy Reid's record when both he and the opposing team have a bye, I think it's closer to 500. I think it's more like 3-3 or 2-3 or 3-2, something like that. Not anywhere near as impressive as the 28-4. That is just with him having the bye and not the opposing team. So I just found that to be a little bit of an interesting nugget. Something to note when we go into this game. And real quick, I know they're not playing anymore, but I never get tired of checking in with our good friends down in Texas, the Dallas Cowboys, because there's been a little bit of trouble in hell. I was going to say trouble in paradise, but I mean, let's be honest, they've been in hell for 27 years now. But they ended the season in tragedy, as we all hilariously witnessed, and they decided to shake things up a little bit, letting go of Kellen Moore, who just as of last year was getting looks for head coaching gigs because of how great their offense looked. I don't know, man. I think he's kind of getting scapegoated for one, Mike McCarthy, but two, Dak Prescott's horrible season, because Dak Prescott was bad this year, man. He was not good. And I don't think Kellen Moore is that bad of a play caller. Certainly a better play caller than the guy who's taken over. And that would be one Mike McCarthy, who Aaron Rodgers just couldn't wait to get away from in Green Bay. And who they pretty much, made it a point to not allow him to assume play calling duties from the jump, because, we saw how that went in the past in Green Bay. Do we think Mike McCarthy learned from any of his mistakes? No, there's no freaking way. If you listen to the guy, even in his introductory interview with the Cowboys, he's like, yeah, I didn't even watch any film over the last year or so since I've been out of football. Like, okay, dude. Like, how the hell did you get the job? I know how he got the job. It's because he says yes to whatever the hell Jerry Jones wants. And in reality, Jerry Jones is the guy running the day-to-day operations of the team. And I always did find it funny that the guy who does for example, when the Eagles win or lose, whatever it is, it's Nick Sirianni, right? The press conference the Monday morning, and then on the radio Monday morning. With the Cowboys, it's not McCarthy. It's Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is he is the coach, the GM, the owner. He might as well go out there and strap it up, and I mean, that'd be interesting. No, wouldn't he? Probably die. But they brought in Brian Schottenheimer, who most recently was he with Seattle most recently? I'm not sure. Maybe someone could look that up. But he was with Seattle with Russell Wilson for a good 3-year stretch, and I know they had a top 10 offense. But he very famously, and I guess I can reference the meme here, would not let Russ cook. So Seattle fans did not enjoy him very much, and I think we're pretty happy when he was out. And Schottenheimer is kind of a laughingstock around the league at this point. So, but don't worry, Cowboys fans, you're saved, because Mike McCarthy's going to be calling your plays. So that's enough of the Cowboys stuff. We'll have all season to poke fun at them. Let's get back to some Super Bowl business here. What's up? Okay, yeah, most recently with Urban Meyer and with Urban Meyer's Jacksonville Jaguars. So an interesting distinction there, not with Doug Peterson's Jacksonville Jaguars, where he's being poached from a quality coaching staff. No, he's being poached from quite possibly the worst coaching staff to ever be assembled in the history of NFL football. Think about that. All right, now back to the Eagles. So when I look at this game, I always sort of start with just looking at it matchup by matchup, player by player, who has the best collection of players on the team, because you could look at coaches, and we already talked about whether who's better, Andy or Nick, and I think there's similarities, differences, there are pros and cons to each of them. But when you look up and down the roster, I think there's no question that the Philadelphia Eagles, I guess I can't say top to bottom, because top, you start with Patrick Mahomes, but almost all throughout, have the better roster. And I wanted to do this little exercise here in my own head, where I would rank all of the top 10 players who are going to be playing in the game in the Super Bowl. And I didn't do it in any particular order, because it's tough to rank, across positions, and like between Lane and Travis Kelce or something like that. Is Lane Johnson a better tackle than Travis Kelce is a tight end? I wouldn't be able to tell you. So if I'm just listing guys, and I wanted to be as fair to the Kansas City Chiefs as possible. I wanted to put as many Chiefs on this list as possible without it sort of getting ridiculous. And I started with Mahomes. That was the obvious one. And then you, of course, have Jalen Hurts, who I believe is a top 10 player in this game. Lane Johnson, the Kelce brothers, Hassan Reddick, Chris Jones, the Chiefs defensive tackle, with 15 sacks this season at defensive tackle, which is very impressive. A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, And then I wanted to add a sixth chief, which was tough for me to do. And I went with Creed Humphrey, the center, who is second team All-Pro, really good player. Maybe he might actually be the second best center behind Jason Kelce in football right now. So that was with me being generous to the Chiefs. I didn't even include guys like Bradbury, Darius Slay, Gardner Johnson. I just think there's an elite level at almost every layer of this Eagles offense. And then, the Chiefs have L'Jarius Sneed, who I think is a good player, but he's not up on the level of Darius Slay or Bradbury. He's definitely the best corner they have, but that left me, just doing that list there, I had six Eagles, four Chiefs, and that was with me being as generous as I possibly could to the Chiefs. The Eagles team is ridiculously stacked, and the more I think about it, the more I think that it's truly the best Eagles team ever. And I obviously wasn't alive since pre-1995, and I've been watching football since before, like 2002, 2001. So, but I don't think there's any mistake in this is the best Eagles roster ever, at least. So, and there was another thing that I think, and this is actually something that I've been saying all season, something that everybody's sort of been saying all season when it comes to this Eagles team in particular, the 2022 team, and how it's built and how there's a ton of free agents next year. First of all, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with how many players that they're going to be able to keep next season after paying Jalen Hurts. Not because I think Jalen Hurts is going to take a discount, and he's not. There's no freaking way Jalen Hurts is going to take a discount because he's an MVP caliber player. The NFL lifespan is shorter than any other athlete in any other sport. And then note this, his agent, Nicole Lynn, this is her first mega star deal. And there's no way if she wants to attract other athletes that she's going to have this guy take a hometown discount for the Philadelphia Eagles, or else she can pretty much kiss her agency career in the NFL goodbye. So Jalen Hurts is going to cash in big time, big time. I mean, you're looking at $50 million, whatever, something like that. So, but I think we're going to be able to keep a lot of this team together, and I think Howie Roseman's going to find a way. Because one, I trust Howie Roseman, and two, the salary cap is going up. People always forget that, but this year I think it's going up by about $16 million, and I do trust Howie Roseman to be able to make good use out of that cap. And then if you look at it, a lot of those guys that are going to be free agents are on the defensive side of the ball. And you got a guy like Fletcher Cox, who I think a lot of people pretty much expect is going to be gone. And I don't think too many people are going to be shedding too many tears that he's gone. Not that nobody dislikes Fletcher Cox. I think everybody loves Fletcher Cox. He's an Eagles legend. But, everybody knows that there's a time for everything, a time and a place for everything. And there was even a time and a place for Tom Brady, apparently, on a beach at 5 a.m. So far. But, so who knows with that? Brandon Graham, I think he might want to run it back, but who knows if he's going to want to play on a cheaper deal just to kind of hang around for a little bit. Jason Kelce, I'm sort of starting to think that he's going to actually stick around for another year, just based off of things that his mother's been saying. And I would think that she has a pretty good read on the situation there. But there's some guys that you sort of expect to have to go, and guys that you might not be too upset with leaving. I think Bradbury's a guy that I think might be a tough pill to swallow. That he's going to want to, and he's going to deserve a major payday as he leaves the Eagles this offseason. Probably will leave the Eagles this offseason. I just don't see a way that we're going to be able to retain him. But you got guys like Gardner Johnson, who's expressed tons of interest in coming back next season. He's a guy that I think should be at the top of their priority list. Miles Sanders, again, a running back, replaceable, I think. And you got a guy like Kenny Gainwell who's been really coming on. And you can always get a guy who can replace that production in the draft, especially when you have the offensive line that you do. So really, the area is concentrated on the defense. But if you turn it over and look on the offensive side of the ball, this is a young core that's built to stay for a long time. It's much different than the 2017 team, which is a bunch of mercenaries pretty much on both sides of the ball. No, this was an offensive core that was drafted, cough, cough, by Howie Roseman, drafted 10 of 11 guys. Yep, A.J. Brown being the one guy that they did not. And they're all young. They're all pretty much like 25 or under. Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Landon Dickerson. Did I say Devontae Smith? Dallas Goedert, Mailata.
You got Jurgens who's waiting in the wings. I mean, this is a really, really young offense, and a lot of these guys are locked up. A.J. Brown's locked up for a while. Devontae Smith is locked up for at least the next few years. A lot of the offensive line guys are locked up still on the rookie deals. Goddard just signed an extension last season. Seumalo's probably going to go, but you have Jeff Stoutland University here, and Jeff Stoutland has a background from a college program. So basically, Jeff Stoutland is the development god. I mean, he's used to just churning out guys who come through every 4 years and losing guys every 4 years and building them up. So you bring in another guard. I don't think they're going to miss a beat there to replace Seumalo's production. Not that Seumalo is a bad player, but man, this team is there's a lot of young guys to look forward to on this offense. Oh, and a guy that I forgot to mention who might be possibly the most important piece on the defense who's locked up is Mr. Game Wrecker himself, Hassan Reddick, Philly's finest. So this is a really young team, and I'm not so sure that this is the one-off. This is the only chance that this team is going to have to cash in and win a Super Bowl. I will say, however, if there's one team that's going to beat the Chiefs, if it's not freaking this one, I don't know which Eagles team it's going to be. Because if there's any team that's assembled to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, I really can't look at any other Eagles roster that we're ever going to have that's going to be as dominant as this one. So, and we mentioned 10 of 11 guys. So this is the Kansas City Chiefs here have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their 11 guys on offense that were drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm wondering if we're planning to fire the Kansas City Chiefs general manager for his terrible draft record and how he's built that team. But you had media day the other day, and that was where all the guys got a chance to sort of let their hair down and have a little bit of fun and be asked ridiculous questions. And then you had some guys off the record, like Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, who very rarely speaks on record. But he did at media night, and he had some interesting things to say about Jalen Hurts. When asked about whether he was ready to sign him to a new contract this offseason, said, yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts has nothing left to prove. He's everything that we look for in a football player, in his development, his leadership. And I agree with those two things that he just said. Not so much with the first one. I do think there's more for Jalen Hurts to prove. And I think he would agree. Excuse me. One of those being consistency, right? I mean, think about it. When we talk about guys like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, these guys didn't just put one great season on tape. They do it year in and year out consistently. So I think Jalen Hurts still has that to prove. And I also think he still has to prove that he can play well in big games. And I mentioned earlier that I don't think the offense played their best game against the 49ers. I don't think Hurts played his best game against the 49ers. And I mean, there could be plenty of reasons why, right? The Niners are just a good football team. I don't think we handled the blitz very well. And I think they were sending some, confusing looks for Jalen, and I think he was having, trouble finding his guys quick enough on the blitz, and maybe something to do with the shoulder a little bit. He was missing deep balls with A.J. Brown, a couple overthrows here and there. Maybe he was, maybe the moment just got a little big for him in the beginning of the game. I mean, who knows? But look, he needs to be better than he was last week against the 49ers. That's for sure. I'm just a tad bit worried about his health. If it's the shoulder thing that's keeping him from connecting on those deep passes, that he really, I mean, he connected on that one against the Giants to Devontae Smith, but after that in that game, he really wasn't hitting those deep balls in that game or the 49ers game. And that's something that we saw him hit those deep balls all season long, pre-shoulder injury. So that's just something that I think I would be a little bit worried about if I'm looking for something to be concerned with about Jalen Hurts. But then if you break it down a little bit more, and I don't mean to be, negative and rip Jalen Hurts, you guys know how much I love the guy, but if you just look back at his history in big games in college, not exactly the most spotless records there. You got the 2017 national championship versus Clemson, in which he was 13 for 31 41% completion percentage, 131 yards, touchdown, no picks, 35-31 loss. So somehow they put up 31 points with only 13 completions out of 31. So 41% completion percentage, not so good there. And then we, of course, know what happened in the 2018 national championship versus Georgia. We started 3 for 8, 37% completion percentage, only 27 yards there. And he was benched when they were down 13-0 at halftime. But he did have a good bounce back in the SEC championship game the next year in 2019 when he came in for an injured Tua, went 7 for 9, 82 yards, touchdown, and a comeback win. And then in Oklahoma, they go into the playoffs. They get smoked, but by a great LSU team to their credit. But again, a bad passing day, 15 for 31, 48 completion percentage, no touchdowns, and a pick. So if you ask me, and I know that I think, if you look at the rosters, you would say, yeah, the Chiefs have Mahomes. He's better than Hurts, but the Eagles have the better roster. I still think it's Hurts who's the guy that you have to look at to win this football game for the Eagles. I just do. You don't pay Jalen Hurts the big bucks, or we're not going to do that for him to, sort of take the back seat in the game in the Super Bowl. I mean, as fans, we want Jalen Hurts to be the MVP of the Super Bowl. Obviously, we all want to win. We'll take out however it comes, but I think it would be most conducive to our success if it's Jalen Hurts, driving point, and the most valuable player on the team there. So, with that being said, it takes me to the other side of the football and Jonathan Gannon, who everybody all of a sudden loves ever since he rolled down his window and said, we're going to effing gut these guys right before the 49ers game, which is hilarious, by the way. But it sort of got me thinking in this scenario here, and it's pretty much an impossible question, I think. But if you were to be at the very end of the game and you could pick between either of these two scenarios, one of which is the Eagles are down, say, 4 points, but we have the ball with a minute left, 3 timeouts, from our own 25 on offense. Do you prefer that scenario, or do you prefer up 4 points? Patrick Mahomes has the ball, same scenario, 1 minute, 3 timeouts, but it's our defense on the field that has to stop Mahomes. I think, so here's the thing. Option one is great and all, but you go into that scenario down 4 points with a minute left in the fourth quarter. And there's no way that I want to be in that scenario. I think I would rather have my defense on the field, that final drive. And I know Mahomes, the whole 13 seconds thing, but he's not infallible. Earlier in the season, he threw a pick to seal his defeat against the Buffalo Bills on a drive of similar nature. So I think I would trust the defense, and I would trust Jonathan Gannon to be the team that has the lead out there on the field at the end of the game. I don't know. That's just me. So let's get into the matchup a little bit here. And I want to be very clear about this. I'm not underestimating the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs they're here every single year, almost 14-3. The highest scoring offense in the league. Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the league. Andy Reid, the best offensive coach in the league. But I want to sort of get into how each team will try to attack the other team, and how each team is going to come out and try to win the game. So what the Chiefs are going to do, and they're going to look at this team and say, that's a pass rush that's really scary, because not only do they have Hassan Reddick, but they have Hargrave, Sweat, Graham, Cox. They're deep, right? Ton of guys, 4 guys with 10 sacks, and they got a fresh rotation of pretty much just about 8 guys when you include Linval, Joseph, and Ndamukong Suh, guys like that. So now, if you're Andy Reid, what's your favorite thing to do to eliminate a pass rush? That's going to be the screen game. And I could see a lot of dump offs to Travis Kelce and the running backs. A guy that they love dumping the ball off to has been Jerick McKinnon, who's really come on as of late toward the end of the season. So don't be mistaken and think that this is just Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce running this offense, right? Because Patrick Mahomes had, I think, 5,200 something passing yards this season. Travis Kelce only had 1,300 of them. So about 4,000 of those other yards had to have gone to other guys on the roster not named Travis Kelce. So that does include your Juju Smith-Schusters, your Valdez-Scantling, your Hardmans, who's not going to be in the game, and your Kadarius Tonys, who's relatively new. But then, of course, the running backs, who they love pumping the ball off to on wide receiver screens, and that's McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire earlier on in the season. So McKinnon's a guy that I'd be a little bit scared of. They can't tackle him out of the backfield. It's going to be a tough day. And I mean, if you're spending all your bullets chasing after Patrick Mahomes, and right before his knee hits the turf, he's able to sort of pass it off to Jerick McKinnon. It's going to be really tough on this defense to defend that all day. So you're going to have to be ready to defend every single second of the play and cover every single inch of that field with Patrick Mahomes and that offense. So if Mahomes and Kelce are connecting, and we're not able to I wouldn't say get home on Patrick Mahomes, because you really can't. I mean, it's tough to sack Patrick Mahomes. We're probably not going to sack him 4 times in this game. I think the Chiefs have let up 26 sacks to Patrick Mahomes all season long, which is, partly due to Patrick Mahomes, but also because they have a pretty solid pass blocking O line. I think it's one of the better pass blocking O lines in football. So what Jonathan Gannon always says is it's not about sacks, it's about pressure. And if you're pressuring the quarterback, you're going to make things happen there. And you're going to Patrick Mahomes can turn the ball over. I know he's a god and everything. He's the best quarterback in the league, but he is capable of turning over the football. So we need to make sure that we win that turnover battle, and we're not turning over the football, because if we're giving Patrick Mahomes and that offense short fields, again, we're going to put ourselves in a little bit of a hole, and I do not want to be down 14-0 to this offense whatsoever. And then you, of course, have Steve Spagnuolo, who's going to want to try to make Jalen Hurts win this game with his arm. And I know that sounds insulting for me to say, because Jalen Hurts has had an MVP season. I know he's developed greatly as a passer, but Steve Spagnuolo has been watching the film on how the Eagles' offense has handled blitz all season, and it's not been their strong suit. And let's be honest, the strength of this Eagles' offense is still running the football behind that offensive line and just dominating up front that way. So if they're gonna go out and try and win this game on defense, it's going to be to put that pressure on Jalen Hurts and force him to either make quick decisions, faster decisions than he's had to make all season, force him to beat your blitz, or force him to escape the pocket and make off schedule plays, which is tough to do for the entirety of a game. So what the Eagles are going to have to do is I think, instead of just trying to run the ball early on and play this ball control, like I think a lot of people want to do, because people are saying that, you want to slow the game down and limit the possessions for Patrick Mahomes. That's what you do in a game if you go into it as the lesser team. We're not the lesser team. We can hang with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think we want to go in there and play our game, and our game is not just run the ball every play, because this offense has shown that they'll go into every game and they're matchup based, right? So the Chiefs in the red zone let up tons of touchdowns to wide receivers. So the Eagles will need to convert heavily in the red zone. You're going to need to get touchdowns, not field goals. And the Chiefs have a little bit of an inexperienced secondary outside of L'Jarius Sneed. It's McDuffie, who's a young rookie corner, and there's another guy back there who's another younger player as well. So I would be trying to test them with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith very early on in this game. In fact, I might even try and take a deep shot or two early on, just to say, hey, look, we're going to use every part of the field too, right? You're not just going to be able to sit back and defend. We're not going to be one-dimensional, right? We're going to be multiple here. I think I don't think you should be afraid to throw the football to AJ and Devontae early and often, and I don't think they should shy away from targeting Dallas Goedert in the red zone, because, like I said, I think the Chiefs have a weakness on defense in the red zone. Another area that the Chiefs have a weakness on, and this one's on their offensive side of the ball, they do have a great pass-protecting offensive line. That's more so on the interior, however. Orlando Brown and Wiley are not exactly they're not quite as good as the interior guys there. In fact, Wiley is not very good at all, and he's the guy that you expect to be lined up against Hassan Reddick. So that's going to be another thing where Andy Reid's going to want to try and avoid dropping back too much to get Hassan Reddick in Mahomes' face. So they're going to want to do screens, dump offs, sort of. They might even want to make Hassan Reddick dictate the plays like we've been doing with guys like Mike Parsons and, other guys like that. So, but I do think that's going to be an area that the Eagles are going to be able to exploit. I think they should try and collapse the pocket around Patrick Mahomes and force him up, right? And just see if you can sweep him up that way and force a few mistakes out of him. So, that's how I would attack it if I'm the Eagles, and that's how I think the Chiefs would attack this game on both sides of the ball there. But I think that game plan, I just think that favors the Eagles because I think it's going to come down to winning the one-on-one matchups. Because you're not really going to be able to confuse Patrick Mahomes on defense, right? You're not going to be throwing him any looks that he's never seen before, and you're not going to just be able to blitz the hell out of him because he's going to beat your blitz, right? That's what the good quarterbacks do. They pick those things apart. So I just think it's going to come down to winning one-on-one matchups, and I think player for player, this Eagles team is the better team than the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't think it's crazy for me to say that. And with that said, it's all 22 starters that the Eagles had on day one. Coming in, and they're going to be healthy and playing in this game, which is incredible. The same cannot be said for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you got some banged up wide receivers. Hardman's not going to play. Snead's banged up at corner, but he is going to play. And then, of course, Juju Smith-Schuster and Tony are a little bit banged up too and been limited in practice throughout the week. But I think they're going to play as well. But again, those are guys that should be able to be handled by our secondary, by Bradbury and by Darius Slay. So I see this game being a good turnout for the Eagles. And I think it's going to come down to just winning the one-on-one matchups because we're the flat-out better team. Now, I guess this is something I guess people can leave in the comments, and we're just recording the show here, so I'm not going to be able to do it live. But I want to know, and you guys can let me know, but this has been the discourse sort of all week. Does this mean more to you to win the game because you're going against Andy Reid? Or would it be worse for you to lose because it's Andy Reid? I would say it doesn't make it sweeter for me to beat Andy Reid because it's Andy Reid, but I do think it would hurt more losing to Andy Reid because it's Andy Reid, if that makes sense. So, but that's sort of the way that I see this game going, and that's my take on it. My prediction, I think it's going to be close, man. I really think it's going to be the closest freaking Eagles game that we have seen all season long. And that's not really saying much because the Eagles have just pretty much kicked everybody's ass all year. When Jalen Hurts has been healthy, only lost one game with the man at QB. I think it's going to stay that way. I don't think they're going to lose Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. But I do think it's going to be really close, man. I think we are going to be hearts pumping. Nails biting, chest pounding the entire freaking night, sweating, man. I have this coming down too, and as I mentioned earlier, I would prefer having the lead at the end of the game, but I do think it's going to come down to our offense having to put the game, put the game in at the zeros and just go down the length of the field, and it's going to end on a Jake Elliott field goal. I have 23-21 Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to give my man Jalen Hurts the MVP. I think a long shot MVP, though, could be Hassan Reddick if he ends up having a day versus old Wiley there. So, but yeah, I think just to sort of sum it up as we wrap up toward the end of the show here, usually I have other teams to talk about, but I really want to save some of that stuff for the off season here because really this is Eagles, it's Chiefs, and I mean, these next few days are just going to drag on, man. And it does suck that we're this close to the end of football. But, I mean, it's as good as it could possibly get because it's the Eagles who are in the final game of the season. So, I think everybody should just enjoy it. Try to soak in these last few weeks. Watch all the Eagles highlights that you possibly can. But soak it in, man. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to be having a parade at some point next week. But I got a 23-21 Eagles victory. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Hopefully I'll be back next week discussing an Eagles victory with you and not an Eagles loss, where we'll all be totally devastated. Oh my God, it'd just be losing 2 championships in Philly in the same year would be miserable. I don't even want to think about it. I don't know if I'm ready for that possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen, man. I really don't. I do think it's going to be close, but nobody's going to be able to freaking say that we haven't beat anybody anymore because we're going to be the Super Bowl champs, man, and we're going to have 2 rings, baby, and those freaking dumbass Dallas fans can go to hell because we're getting there. But thanks to James Scores for producing the program tonight, everybody for listening. Go Birds, baby. Go freaking Birds. Take it away.
Yeah, today's sponsorship is proudly sponsored by David R. Cherry Esquire, Workers' Compensation, Motor Vehicle Accidents, Personal Law, Criminal Law. Give him a call at 610-565-0300 and tell him that the boys over at EOP sent you. And Sherry'sTickets.com is the #1 spot for tickets on game day. Save 10% by using the promo code EOP10. Great prices, no hidden fees for sports, concerts, tickets. Visit their showroom. Visit www.sherrysticketown.com and tell them that EOP sent you.